We are rolling at UCLA on March 5th, 2015. It's a glorious day in Los Angeles. We're about to hear a debate on a very interesting topic that's of interest to the American nation. Specifically, we're going to look at the question whether or not we want to continue a policy that this nation has embarked upon. And specifically, these debaters are going to ask the question whether or not this House would ban fracking. This House would ban fracking. And speaking for the ban on fracking will be Gabriel. Can we welcome him to the podium? Gabriel. Thank you, Gabriel. Let us hear your argumentation. Oh, I need you folks to speak from behind the, back up and speak behind the green line. There you go, Gabriel. Good. Excuse me, we have a little technical issue. Camera's still rolling.
So, hi, my name is Gabriel Gonzalez, and today's
Hi, Gabriel.
Today's topic of resolution is that this House will ban fracking. Therefore, this proposition is to be presented as a policy case in the affirmative. So, what is the problem? As stated by Andrew Rosenberg and his colleagues from the Union of Concerned Scientists in the year 2014, in the past decade, the use of hydraulic fracturing has grown more than tenfold in the extraction of natural gas and more than 16-fold in the extraction of oil. Furthermore, every year hundreds of billions of gallons of wastewater are produced by this method of extraction across the United States. This poses a threat because water was supposed to be treated from its contaminants, but it isn't entirely uncontaminated and risks polluting human drinking water. This water that has been reintroduced contains remnants of halides. And when these are paired with disinfection products, the byproduct can yield trihalomethanes, bromate, and chlorine, the products that are known or have been linked to diseases such as bladder cancer. So how big is the problem? According to a statement made in 2014 by Jay Famiglietti, the senior water scientist at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in La Cañada, Flint Ridge, fracking can be environmentally devastating since it can nearly use 100% of the local water supply. Jay Famiglietti went on to say that looking at oil and gas industry's use of water by state or region is misleading because fracking is done in a limited area and it is here where it can completely deplete the local water supply. So why do we have the problem? The United States is just too dependent on fossil fuels. In a chart found on the U.S. Energy Information Administration website, the chart reveals that the United States consumes 19 million barrels of petroleum per day, while India and China combined only consume 13.8. One must not forget that both countries, both China and India combined, account for 36% of the world's population, while the U.S. only accounts for 5%. So what is the solution? Instead of using petroleum-based fuels for transportation, the United States should further invest in hydrogen fuel cells to move these masses. According to the fueleconomy.gov, hydrogen fuel cell vehicles would immensely contribute to the reduction of greenhouse gases, since the only thing emitted from the tailpipe would be heat and water, as opposed to the carbon dioxide emitted from petroleum combusted vehicles. Furthermore, hydrogen can readily be extracted from various safe sources, such as biogas and agricultural waste, both of which are options that have a much smaller carbon footprint than petroleum-based fuels. And furthermore, according to the article entitled Upward Spiral, published by The Economist in 2014, the use of wind power energy can reduce the need for natural gas, which is currently used to operate most electricity generating plants. This could produce up to 1,800 gigawatts of power, more than all types of electricity generating capacity today. Will the solution work? According to an article published in 2015 by The Economist entitled We Make Our Own, the clearest sign of health in the renewable market is smoke-clogged China. In 2013, China invested over $56 billion, more than all of Europe, as part of its shift towards clean energy. Its investment included 16 gigawatts of wind power and 13 gigawatts of solar. Combined, China's renewable power capacity installed in that year was bigger than the fossil fuel and nuclear capacity put together. So what are the advantages to my proposal? By shifting its focus to the development of renewable energy sources, the United States would decrease its dependency on oil and natural gas, therefore eliminating the need for fracking. On balance, switch out ways. By banning fracking and further exploring and promoting the use of renewable energy sources like wind power, solar energy, and hydrogen fuel cells, the United States government would be safeguarding the future of its citizens. Furthermore, it would ultimately eliminate the harm that could result from fracking. Thank you.
I now stand
open for cross-examination.
Very good. Okay, move just slightly that way, both of you. Thank you.
How exactly would you focus the shift from shale gas over to these renewable energies?
So instead of, subsidies, definitely. The government should subsidize a lot of these programs because it's definitely the direction the planet has to head in. As I mentioned, global warming has become an issue as of late, and by switching to renewable sources, this would help reduce the trend that's gradually building towards the devastating effects that can result from global warming.
And by completely banning fracking, this would obviously cause mass unemployment.
Look at your audience, not the...
mass unemployment of tens of thousands of people that are working in this industry. Now, how exactly would you propose dealing with that issue of unemployment?
These people can then be transferred to the new industry. There's a need to create hydrogen fuel cell. There's a need to maintain the solar wind fields, and there's a need to maintain keep the maintenance of solar energy. So.
But do you believe how would these people be trained? These can be kind of in a certain way different industries completely. How would you train these people in a certain way to get them accustomed to these new renewable resources?
Well, answer that question, then we're done.
The same. It goes to the same thing. The people who worked in the oil industry were obviously trained to do that. So now you would train people to work on the different industry.
Thank you so much. The chair will now recognize the leader of the opposition who opposes the ban on fracking and will tell us why fracking is wonderful.
This is a proposition...
Could you stand over just a touch to the right to center on the camera? Thank you so much.
This is a proposition is to be presented in the negative. Now in this, I'm going to prove that banning fracking altogether is really not necessary in our society that really does depend on fracking so much, and that we can make it safe and reliable and change it for the better. Now the problem that's happening is that states are banning or reducing the use of fracking, thus limiting both the production of valuable resources and economic growth for the state. In 2014, New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo and his administration decided to ban hydraulic fracking in a state with large reserves of natural gas under the surface. Now, these gas reserves could be used to power the state and other parts of the country, and now those are going to remain untouched. Another problem that's occurring is that the storage and transportation of fracking fluids is insufficient. Professor Susan Brantley and Anna Mirdoff of the University of Michigan and In an article from the New York Times dated March 2013 states that trucks that are in transportation that transport the oil field from the oil fields to storage facilities spill this mixture of chemicals that ultimately lead to contamination of local soils and water. Now, how big is the problem? A writer, Andrew Bartran from the Boston Globe, wrote an article in 2004 listing all the states that have placed a certain kind of ban on fracking. The first state to ban the drilling practice was Vermont in 2012. Connecticut banned the handling and storage of fracking and waste, and New York recently banned fracking statewide. And across the United States, more than 400 cities, towns, counties, districts, and states have attempted to ban fracking or practices associated with fracking. Why exactly do we have the problem? Well, environmentalist groups have put a lot of pressure on state legislators to ban hydraulic fracking. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo spent a lot of time actually dodging these protesters, but he eventually gave into the environmentalist propaganda and placed a ban on it. Safety regulations have obviously not been as strict as they should be. This has obviously had an unfortunate impact on the environment to a certain extent. What is the solution? Banning fracking altogether is not the answer here. Shale gas has too many economic advantages to just be completely disregarded. In this proposition, I'm simply going to be asking for an increase in regulations and safety for hydraulic fracking. I personally propose that we hire more people to inspect these oil fields on a daily basis to ensure that there are no leaks and that the machines are working properly. If there is a certain issue with the machinery, which is causing leaks to occur, the drilling operation will be shut down until proper repairs are made. In addition, as proposed by a Washington Post article from 2014, states should control where and how water waste is disposed of, require robust wells that are resistant to blowouts, demand that drillers prevent methane and volatile organic compounds from escaping into the air, and regulate leaks from storage facilities and site wells. Even though the study conducted by the Institute of Energy and Environment states that fracking represents a cleaner environmental footprint on the oil, coal, and gas, we can still reduce environmental impact and resulted from current fracking practices. In Washington Post article dated November 2014, titled "Some Proposed Fracking Rules in Maryland Go Too Far," says that states should require companies to minimize the amount of methane they allow into the atmosphere during fracking operations. And a Stanford-led study conducted in 2014 found that steel casing and Portland cement are the current tools used to prevent the chemicals and gases from reaching the environment. And obviously, this is insufficient as steel eventually corrodes and cement can be easily damaged. Thus, I suggest we increase funding in order to improve the infrastructure of these wells as serving barriers for our fragile environment. Will solution work? Obviously, if we are able to put these regulations and safety measures into place, well leaks and storage and transportation mishaps would become obsolete. What are the advantages? Well, by having hydraulic fracturing as one of the main ways in which the United States harvests energy, we are in effect creating more jobs. A study conducted by the Vermont Law School Institute of Energy and Environment states that Pennsylvania experienced a job boom in 2008 as shale gas production created 29,000 new jobs with a revenue of $2.3 billion and tax revenue of $238 million. Also, fracking is actually a safer alternative in regards to environment comparison and other ways in which the United States harvests energy. Professor Brantley, who I mentioned earlier, found the production of shale gas actually emits half the carbon dioxide per unit as coal, and coal burning also emits metals such as mercury into the waters and atmosphere. On balances, which outweighs? In the end, there are more benefits than disadvantages when it comes to hydraulic fracturing in the United States. Though there will be a slight environmental impact with my proposal, the study of Vermont University shows that shale gas in relation to coal and oil has actually lowered the concentration of emissions in the United States and will continue to do so if we eliminate dependence on coal. Economically, the shale gas industry will create thousands of jobs throughout the United States while at the same time making less dependent on energy from across overseas.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we'll have a 1-minute cross-examination.
So by supporting Susan Brantley and Anna Meyerdoff's claim, which states that transportation has the potential to spill the mixture of chemical, which thus contaminates the soil, aren't you in essence agreeing with me that it is unsafe to drill for these resources since they have the potential to harm the environment, furthermore humanity?
Look at your audience, not your opponent.
Well, in my proposition, I do recognize that with current fracking practices, there is an issue that is occurring where it is being contaminated. There's no doubt about that. But in my proposition, I want to be able to stop this from occurring. I want to be able to prevent these types of accidents from affecting the environment and really start to fund these, more safer infrastructure for wells and really up the safety on transportation and things of that nature.
Again, back to the environment. You stated that the environment is fragile. Therefore, why continue exposing it to practices such as fracking that can potentially not only harm humans but destroy ecosystems?
Say it orally.
Well,
this is your last answer. Go ahead quickly.
Well, I think that I guess pretty much going back to my proposal, that yes, the environment is fragile, but I think anything really has an environmental impact. Putting solar power everywhere and windmills, that's going to take up space. That's going to affect the environment to a certain extent. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Thank you very much. That's time. It's now time to hear some refutation. 4-step refutation from, let's hear from the leader of the government, 4-step refutation of the arguments that we just heard. Let's hear from the leader of the government. You can be seated, Heather Holcomb.
The proponent, what's
Get in the center. There you go. Good.
Okay. The negative to this argument says that banning fracking or continuing fracking will lead to economic benefits, but I disagree because, as I have proven, and as she has even stated, the environment is fragile, and there aren't measures that can completely safeguard humans, animals, entire ecosystems from the harms that can arise from fracking. Furthermore, during the 90s, fracking still didn't exist, and we had cheap oil prices. Therefore, there is a way for us to have stable gas prices without having to tap our natural resources, and therefore I propose that fracking should be banned.
You can do one more refutation. You have another 45 seconds.
Okay. Let's see. My proposal. Gosh.
Okay, you can talk about her proposal. My opponent proposed cement.
Oh yeah, my proponent proposed cement and steel casings to prevent the leaks from happening. But as she stated, they're still not foolproof. They can still break or deteriorate with time. Therefore, we need to. So in order for that to prevent that from happening, we need to prevent fracking. Therefore, I am firm on my belief that we should ban fracking.
Thank you very much. Let's hear a nice applause for the leader of the government, and now the leader of the opposition. Take it one step to the right and begin your 2-minute rebuttal to why we should continue to frack.
Well, Gabriel says that fracking has terrible effects on the environment, but when compared to harvesting energy from sources such as coal, fracking has actually less of an impact on the environment, because coal emits twice the amount of carbon dioxide and also emits mercury into the atmosphere that can settle into the soil and water. And when exposed to mercury over a period of time, cancer can actually develop. But therefore, fracking is not the most harmful form of harvesting energy. Gabriel also says that he would replace fracking with wind-empowered solar energy, but he does not seem to realize that this will drastically affect the United States economy, because banning fracking will lead to mass layoffs of those involved in the industry, therefore creating an economic downturn within the United States.
Therefore, for all these reasons,
fracking should not be banned.
thank you very much. Time for the audience to vote. Fill your ballots out quickly. Sign your name. Pass them over to the center.
Do you have any extra?
Do you have any extra? Is the Pope Catholic?
No, I'll sign in right now. Thanks.
Is the Pope Catholic?
I hope he is.
Oh God, I hope so. Thank you.
Do I have all the ballots?
No. But so what are the points out of again?
Excuse me?
What are the points out of? Or are we not
We don't have to do it.
We're not doing points, but they would be out of 100. Thank you.
Teamwork.
Do I have all the ballots?
No.
You have 2 more back.
Who's came read the writing? Who is this? Sucido? Who is that?
Mine.
You didn't fill out a decision.
I didn't get in trouble.
Oh Lord. It's either government or opposition. Gabriel or Heather? Thank you. In an 8-3 decision, it goes for the proposition or for the government to ban fracking. Very quickly, what did you like about the argumentation?
As a whole? Hussein.
What's your name?
Hussein.
Hi, Hossein.
I thought you guys had some great points. I don't know if you knew much about the topic beforehand, but you sounded pretty experted. And your questions were very relevant, both of you, during the cross-examination.
Thank you.
Improvement?
Do I talk about improvement? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I'm Y.
Hi, why?
For Heather's improvement, I think it's, the question that she asked in the cross-examination can be more aggressive. Because the way
Louder, why?
okay, because the way she asked Gabriel, I think it's like just asking some question is not relevant to support her argument. So I think she should use more she should use more aggressive argument or those things. For Gabriel, I think overall he did a great job because he almost attacked everything that Heather has, and if there is an improvement that is needed, I guess it's I don't know, be more
We'll go with that. I go with that. Reputation.
I can't think about
Reputation.
Okay.
yeah, the reputation.
The reputation was a little light. Let me give you a couple of quick comments and then we need to move on. But thank you both for illustrating the issue. Let me go first to Gabriel in his affirmative case, which you analyzed correctly as a policy proposition, correctly skipped the definitions. There was no need to waste time on the definitions, which was fine. I thought that you got to the heart of the problem, I suppose, by talking about the contamination of drinking water, which you talked about the chemicals that contaminate and can cause cancer. What was lacking in that section was where it actually has contaminated, only that it could, but not that it has. And then in your second, how big is the problem? This is where you got your benzene and your wells, and where there you got actual contamination, and so that was good. And you got the guy from the local Jay Fermanghetti and the locking out of Flint Ridge guy. So that was good. As for why we have the problem, You talked about the idea that there's lack of regulation to control it, and you talked about how there's not enough control over the regulation of fracking, and that would seem to suggest that we need more regulations, and I think that's where Heather was going, just more regulation and closer look at it instead of banning it outright. And so that's where I think we have a little bit of a rub, you know, whether we just need more regulation or do we need to ban it completely outright. As for your dependence on fossil fuels, the rub on all of this, of course, is that wind and solar is, you know, the left's wet dream, but it's going to be a while until we get there, and we need a transitional fuel. And fracking and natural gas may be a better way, which Heather was trying to point out, to get us there, rather than coal and other really heavily emitting things.
I didn't mention coal, by the way.
I know, she did. She was saying that, you know, if you're going to use these really bad ones, that it's better to use natural gas, which you get from fracking. As for your, and the other problem that I thought that I was intrigued that you didn't mention was this whole idea of earthquakes and the instability, but you couldn't mention everything. It could have been in your brief, perhaps. As for your solution, you talked about places where cities had banned them and that sort of thing, and how where you pointed to other countries that have gone to green, as they put it, and Heather didn't really attack those. There's good. Did you turn your briefs over 24 hours ahead of time? There's good evidence that Germany's got problems, and the same with China, but we didn't hear it.
Well, I got to tailor it for my arguments.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, and you know that too. And so, and you had good advantages using China and Germany, and you skipped the disadvantages, which were good. So I thought you presented a very solid prima facie case, with the exceptions of things I pointed out. Your cross-X was a little light, and as was pointed out, needs to have more focus on it and be presented in a heavier way, more aggressive way that's more pointed. On your brief, Heather, you said your brief was more defensive than offensive, and although I did like your approach, you said the problem, and it was kind of interesting, because you said the problem was that a lot of states are banning fracking. You thought that was a problem. That almost seems in some ways like it could be affirmative evidence, you know, because that's, I don't know, you know, he could have come and said, yeah, I'm glad they're banning it. I hope more will even do it. Yeah, the environmentalists have been very effective in getting it banned. As for the solutions, and this is where I think I fault you, I think there's good research that the old days of fracking and the early fracking, when they were pumping these nasty chemicals down, are gone, and they've really cleaned up their act, and there's new technology, and that information is out there, and you just have to dig a little deeper on the deep internet, and you can find it and do that. And then you could have had a better counterplan. And it's not banned, it's fixed, not banned, should have been your position, and that would have worked nicely. And you were on the right track by saying, look, this guy's going to raise energy prices for the elderly and the poor. He's going to put people out of work with this green crap, and it's not going to work. We got to have a transitional fuel. And shale is the way, and the other thing is we're so dependent on the Middle East for oil, and it's a mess over there now. We got to get out of the Middle East and let them do whatever they want to do to themselves, and get out of their business, and let's just do our own business over here and become energy independent. I think would have been a stronger way to go. Your refutation, the 4 steps, I thought was a little better than Gabriel's. He only did one, and you only practiced one. I guess because you only thought you had a minute.
Yeah,
So
I
you,
only had a minute.
so you only had a minute, so you were only going to do one. But let's not forget, and you had trouble getting to the impact, which is to keep doing fracking, and that's the way to go. Overall, you guys did a nice job. Thank you. Okay, that's